Let's go over to the Sony topic, because Max, you want to talk about this before you had to leave.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave here in about 40 minutes because I'm dead tired. But let's dig into the huge Sony mess.
This was an article posted by Jason Schreier at Bloomberg yesterday, and then like the internet went like crazy over this thing because people. I think there were probably like 5 more petitions for getting Jim Ryan out of there yesterday.
Did you say the internet went crazy? No way.
Yeah. And it is an interesting thing to look at here, because it's a much different Sony that I think a lot of people grew up with. So definitely calls some opinions, we'll say, online. But this from Bloomberg: Sony's obsession with blockbusters is stirring unrest within PlayStation empire. Going on to talk about a couple of different studios within Sony. A lot of it had to center around Naughty Dog actually getting quite a bit of help from even Bend Studios, who did eventually go to Sony and say, we want to make our own thing after being denied their pitch for a Days Gone 2. And we also had Visual Art Service Group attempt to remake Last of Us for some reason, and then have that essentially given to Naughty Dog, and then they run support again. Essentially coming down to times are changing at Sony, and they're more interested in having big, massive blockbusters, and not so much Japan studio smaller games like Gravity Rush. So what's everyone think about this one when it hit the internet yesterday? There was I mean opinions are flying fast and furious yesterday.
I mean, it feels like they're peeing in their own backyard. I mean, it seems like a lot of people sort of forget this now, but originally Naughty Dog was the quirky indie studio, so to speak. They were making off-the-wall projects like Jak and Daxter and Crash Bandicoot, a marsupial that spin attacks. Like, their stuff originally was the dangerous bet, but Sony supported them, Sony invested in them, and they grew into the juggernaut they are today. So the idea that now people are still trying to make quirky, creative ideas, but now Sony is going, no, thank you. I don't know. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
I think the weirdest thing for me is the whole Days Gone situation.
Mhm.
Now, I didn't particularly care for the game, but if a game is profitable and people enjoy it, and allegedly the reason why you don't want to pursue a sequel in it is because of the fact that it got mediocre reviews. Who the fuck cares about mediocre reviews? This is a business. You're in the business to what? Make money. If people are demanding a product, it's not like, every game that ends up becoming a franchise. It's not like every first game is necessarily the best game. Sometimes it ends up being, one of the mediocre ones or one of the worst games in the franchise. So there was a lot that they could expand upon with Days Gone. But even as just someone who didn't appreciate I shouldn't say appreciate, but just thought it was, kind of a mediocre game or whatever. The fact that it was profitable and made you money, and you don't want to make another one because you got your fees hurt about some review scores, that's bizarre to me.
You know what's strange about this article? As I was reading through it, that it has like a very negative tone or doom and gloom tone to it. But as you go through it, you get towards the end, it's like, oh yeah, now Bend Studio, they're working on a brand new IP and a new franchise, and they have the full backing of Sony. And it's like, oh, well, that's good.
Yeah. It's so weird though.
Oh, okay.
What
weird?
What does that franchise? What is that? Is it going to be another PlayStation?
Yeah.
The standard. When you make the joke about a PlayStation looking game. I saw the one with the arrows. That's the big one going on right now. That template again.
My issue with right now with what's happening with Sony is I do think their games are gonna, if they keep going this route, are gonna have that template feel to them, where it's like, all right, over the shoulder. It's got that cinematic feel and look to it. It's actually some RPG elements thrown in there, and
they've been chasing that template now for several years.
Yeah,
they just disguised it by saying, "Hey, I mean, you could have looked at Days Gone, and they could have called it The Last of Us.
Yeah,
and nobody would have really batted an eye. It was the same genre, the same general concept. And then you have a title like Ghost. It's still a third-person open-world action game.
Mm-hmm.
You have Spider-Man, same thing. You have Uncharted. Same thing. The Last of Us, same thing. They just mixed it up with new IPs and new ideas. And the news that came out from the Bloomberg article, it had me feeling two different ways. If I view it from a business, I can kind of understand what Jim Ryan is doing. They're basically looking at the Disney or the Marvel universe and saying, we're going to invest big dollars. We need big hitters. We don't want that subpar success. We want the blockbuster. So that's what they're investing in. But me as a fan, this is not the direction I want Sony to go in. I don't believe that the Sony that we're hearing of this article would have greenlit Bluepoint to remake Demon Souls. I think that project would have been skipped on. And we see now all of Sony Japan shut down. All these quirky games like Hot Shots Golf will no longer happen. Gravity Rush won't happen. Loco Roco, Patapon, Siren, all those things will no longer release for this brand. Yeah, Sly Cooper, The Last Guardian, Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, all those type of games are going to cease to exist under this type of Sony management.
Yeah, Folklore, yeah, that's a great one.
Folklore, Puppeteer.
There's a lot of games. Names basically on the list.
Legend of Dragoon.
Sony is really positioned themselves in a really weird way here, where I feel like their main focus has shifted right now, currently, to match the demand of their film and television aspect. They have in the Last of Us show on HBO. They have the Uncharted movie coming out early next year. Ghost of Tsushima film was just greenlit for pre-production, seeing if they can do anything with that. And it seems like a lot of these things are kind of correlating. I think as of right now, the Last of Us show may happen before this Uncharted movie actually releases, even though that film is shot. And originally, we were supposed to get an Uncharted 1 remake. That was the first of the two they were going with. And then it shifted to, oh no, Last of Us, almost as if it was interchangeable, because that's where Sony wants, at least Naughty Dog, their number one breadwinner right now, to be focusing on. What are we doing over here that we can tie in over here? New Last of Us show, remake the first game. With the Uncharted movie, let's remake the first game. And I do see it as a big problem, at least if this is the going forward design of their company structure for not releasing these, I would say, less than AAA games or more experimental ones. It does kind of feel like the days of old are gone. Like, we aren't going to get a game like a Ratchet and Clank after this year. Like, that kind of almost feels like, all right, here's a Ratchet and Clank, and you're appeased
right now.
That's what I'm saying. And I hope that they have someone like Insomniac, right?
Yeah,
I really hope they have someone like Insomniac.
It needs to be a 90.
Yeah, that's oh my god. Just to go back to Sean's point, that's the weirdest and stupidest part of this Days Gone thing, is that the whole conversation when Days Gone came out in 2019 was, wow, this thing is topping the sales charts like crazy. Wow, it made its money back in the first week. Like, whoa, my god. And then they're still canceling it. Like, that's the weirdest thing. It's like, people always say, these are companies, they're just trying to make a profit. They don't care about you. They don't care about the gamers. They want to make a profit. Well, in this case, Sony doesn't even want to make a profit.
Remember what they said in the article? They said that the problem too was the development of the game.
Yeah, it was so long.
Yeah, it was it was more just the review scores. Like, hey, this game had bugs. Like, we don't trust you guys with giving you guys like hella money to make a sequel. You guys gonna mess up again? You guys need to do something more safe. So I think that's also something that sometimes gamers are skipping over. You might have liked Days Gone, but it wasn't just review score. It was like, yo, the game had like a lot of issues and had to be patched over a course of time to be better. And
but I mean, isn't that just standard for the industry nowadays? Though,
not for God of War, not for Horizon Zero Dawn, not for what Sony's aiming for now. And at this point, they're not. They don't want the game to be. They want the game to be. This is the best game ever. It's a 90 on Metacritic. It's whatever. Everybody go out there and buy it day one. Days Gone, it did get sales, but it got sales after it was discounted and after it was patched up.
All right, so oh, go ahead, Jordan.
I was going to say, a lot of things are kind of dependent on some future releases for their decision making in terms of what they're going to keep investing in. Something like Ratchet and Clank is kind of that safe bet where there is still enough hype for it, but it really is going to rely on if everyone's down to pick up a new Ratchet and Clank game. Last time they did it, they remade the game and they released the movie at the same time. One of those things was not great, and that was the film. And they were very hesitant to keep working with that franchise if they can't expand it beyond just the video game. So when something comes along, like, let's say, for example, another Infamous game, if that were to come along, is that game going to be more focused on like how the second game started to go juxtaposed to the first game? The first was kind of a quirky open world, not super serious game, I would say. And the second one was a little bit more of that Sony we see today, the over the shoulder look, the cinematic aspect. And not that that's bad or anything, but if it's completely changed to where it's more focused on a serious story or more of the closer up third person, then I do think the days of these messing around and trying new things in gaming, at least on Sony's first party aspect, could be over for some time.
I was just gonna say, like, if we think they're gonna milk, the cow dry kind of thing, like milk these series or these remakes or whatever else, like, I don't know. Also, at the same time, like, part of me thinks, well, if they're gonna kind of collect their resources, if they're gonna milk this as long as they can, eventually it has to come back around to creating new IPs, right? We have to experiment at some time. We can't stay in the space forever. People are just going to
depends on leadership. If this works, if this works, and they become the most profitable they've ever been, making games only like Last of Us and Ghost, and are able to make successful television and movie transfers of those, and they're doing better than ever. Why would they change leadership? Why would they change the course of direction? Like, while there is an uproar
but we're not going to be seeing ourselves like a Ghost of Tsushima 6 or something. You know what I mean? Like, I think they'll take that talent and, use it to kind of create new IPs. And maybe they're not as like the lesser than quirky IPs. Maybe they're actually going to throw it in, and maybe I don't know, maybe they have some things in the works that also, I think at the same time could be like, oh my God, like this is going to be a big hit.
What they're going to do? They're going to this is something that OJ alluded to, I believe, a couple weeks ago, how Sony is trying to value their IPs as higher stuff. So you're seeing it with like Ghost of Tsushima hasn't really gone on sale yet or anything like that.
Yeah.
They're going to take this formula of games like The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, and they're going to expand upon them. See, now you're going to have The Last of Us Golf to go alongside.
No, you shut the hell up.
I
do think the jump to 70 kind of coincides with it. There's some pressure there now for these big AAA games. There's probably the idea of them saying, well, hold on, if we make these games feel special, we don't even have to drop the price on them for years. We can keep them at 70.
I mean, it's Nintendo. It's all business driven. Yeah. This is all Sony's budgets are increasing. So you're looking at sky high budgets for some of these games. They're charging $70. So that means you also have to sell a lot more copies. It reminds me of the move EA made several years ago, of where they took no risk. They made safe sequels to established franchises. They fucked up the new games in these franchises, but they didn't want to take risks with anything. That's why you didn't have a Skate 4, because they looked at it and said, we're not going to invest in that type of project. We're going to put out the Mass Effects. We're going to continue to do the Maddens. We're going to continue to produce the games that sell. And we even saw Microsoft do this a bit with the Xbox One. They became adverse to risk taking. They wanted Western-focused multiplayer games because that's what the market wanted. Sony's now looking at it saying the market wants Western cinematic action games. Eventually, we're going to grow tired of that gameplay cycle. It's going to become stagnant, and we're going to want new things. And Sony has to kind of have that in the back of their mind.
Sure.
You have to plan for that. You can't knee-jerk react saying, oh shit, the market shifted. This is going to evolve. It's going to change. And we see Microsoft change their entire tone of how they treated the Xbox One moving to the Series X. They've expanded. They're looking for new IPs. They're looking for new genre types. Why Sony is going this complete reverse course, it really doesn't make sense. They have found success with some of these IPs. And the fact that they're looking at it saying, oh, we can release Days Gone. Yeah, we made a profit. It just wasn't a huge profit. Come back and make a sequel. Use the foundation you built and make a bigger game. You can look at a title like Uncharted 1. It has a Metacritic score of 88. It was a good game. Uncharted 2 comes out, and it's regarded as one of the greatest games ever made. Why doesn't Days Gone get that second chance? It could become their next big IP. After Uncharted 1, tons of people weren't sitting there saying this is going to be Sony's next big IP. The game was called Tomb Bro for years. People were like, oh, look, they're making a Tomb Raider with a dude. And now it's one of their major IPs.
I still call it that. Fuck that. No respect to law.
Maybe we were in a different spot. From what I understand, I remember that game came out, that was 2007, and everybody that had a PlayStation was like, this is the next big thing, because it was running off of the hype of Resident Evil 4, the behind the back third-person shooter type of. So I saw it as this was the next big thing. There was a few different games. Heavenly Sword was also coming, so people were thinking maybe that was going to be, but that game wasn't as good. So this was the next big thing. It was that, and then Little Big Planet came out a year after. Then people saying, "Oh, that's good, like the Mario type of mascot." But I recall it being the big thing for Sony. Like when Tomb Raider came out, or sorry, not Tomb Raider, when Uncharted came out, I recall it being the big thing for them. That's just what I remember. I remember renting it and be like, "Wow, this game is, look at the graphics." And I remember playing the demo. I mean, maybe Nate, are you? I'm not sure. Like,
you know what? You know, it's a Rhode Island thing. Right. Fucking okay.
Well, so I was going to say I didn't see it that way, but also I feel like all I saw, a lot of that early PS3 advertising was so much about open world and Grand Theft Auto. I just didn't see that much talk about, like, that was kind of a corridor shooter in its own way.
Well, really?
Okay. Maybe I'm California a little bit differently, because everybody here was like, "Yo, this is the PlayStation 3 game."
But let's be real.
It was the same around here.
During the initial PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 time frame, people were all on the 360.
Yeah,
360 was what you talked about. You know, I didn't get a PS3 until, the only reason I bought a PS3 was because of Metal Gear Solid 4. And that was when I got my first credit card at Best Buy. And I was like, "Can I get a credit card here?" And they're like, "Yeah, let's check your credit. Oh, we'll give you a $2,000 credit card." And I was like, "Really?" God. And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Great, getting a PS4 or a PS3 with Metal Gear Solid 4. I get a new TV while I'm here. It's great."
When Infamous came out, I got it for I played Infamous and Grand Theft Auto 4, and it blew my damn mind.
I bought it for Heavenly Sword, and I was
I think the big thing here is definitely just the idea that everyone's kind of hit on this vaguely, but it does feel like a little bit of the Ubisoft syndrome might sink in, where it's like not every Ubisoft product is the same, but they all have the same towers. They have you slowly unlocking the map. You get traversal powers later on. It's going to start to have that formulaic background radiation where there's going to be the Sony checklist. And I feel like, to Click's point of, they're probably still going to make new stuff, but I feel like at this point, I have a feeling that Sony is going to start to try and buy safe bets. Like let's face it, if the Metal Gear Solid remake ends up happening, it's probably going to be Sony just buying it and giving it to Blue Point or something. It's going to be all safe bets.
Yep. And I think they will continue to invest in third-party exclusives, like just to kind of fill in the gaps, because they won't have these, quote unquote AA games to fill in the gaps. But here's my concern. This feels kind of, people are saying it's safe, isn't it? I mean, it could also be kind of risky if you think about it, because how long do these games take to develop? I mean, MVG, I'm sure you could tell me, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's like 5 years to develop one of these things, like from start to finish."
Yeah, I think that's the real risky part of all this. I mean, I think Jordan nailed it when he said, they're going. It's kind of a parallel correlation with movies, right? Like they're making these big blockbuster games now, and development times are just taking longer and longer, and budgets are getting bigger and bigger. Even though, we see these like promotional showcases of Unreal Engine 5, how it's supposedly supposed to cut development time in half. It doesn't. There's just no way that's true, right? And to that point, where is Unreal Engine 5? It's not even out yet, right?
Yeah.
So even that alone tells you, right, that nothing is changing. Things are getting worse and worse. It's taking longer and longer to build these games. And I think the risk that Sony has, look, they're going to bet on sure things, and they're going to win, and they're going to make a lot of money, and they're going to sell millions of copies, and that's fine. But they also have to offset that with the smaller games. And I think that void that they're leaving really opens up the door for a Microsoft to step in and say, "You know what? We've got Game Pass, and we're more than happy to put out these smaller games out there and just basically take that market share." So Sony does have to be careful, because, as you said, John, the games get longer and longer, bigger and bigger. Development costs, become increasingly more. When there are game delays, and there will be game delays, that really does have an impact on the company as a collective. So I think they have to be very, very careful with this path they're choosing. Look, they'll still be very successful. They'll probably still be the market leader. I don't think that's going to change, but I do think they have to be very careful over the next few years if this is what they're going to do.
I want to counter that with, is this...
Do you really?
This is what we're seeing from Sony. Like, this is Sony. This was the news. It was Sony related. Is this a problem exclusive to Sony, or is this a problem that the industry as a whole is facing?
It's the industry. It's easily the industry because there's expectations keep building and building and building, and it's like we got to beat what we did last time.
Sony just reacting to the reality of the industry. They're looking at it and saying we're basically at a point of, we'll say, sustainability. We have huge budgets. We have to make profitable games. We can't take that risk of investing $60 million into this new IP that we only make, let's say we break even, like Death Stranding. Death Stranding overall was not a success for Sony.